Hey, what should we watch tonight? Oh, how about the number one movie on Netflix? Oh, great. Is it any good? Fucking no!
Oh, I love trash!
The Postcard Killings comes to us in our time of need from director Danis Tanovich? And starring the bad guy from The Walking Dead. Postcard Killers is pretty boilerplate action dad fantasy. One of those stories that someone really should have picked up for movie rights when it was written, because this shit kind of hit in 2010, but now it feels really played out. I'm thinking that James Patterson wrote the source material in a hungover stupor, clinging to a half-formed memory of having watched Taken the night before, except his version is more twisted and also makes no fucking sense. The plot. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a dad in London because his daughter was killed and her body was staged and horribly mutilated. Hereto referred to as Jeffrey Dad Morgan, or simply JDM, either is or used to be a cop, it's actually kind of unclear, and he decides to forcibly assist in the investigation of his daughter's murder. So more murders with similar staging happen in various European cities, and Jeffrey Dad Morgan picks a fucking argument with every police precinct in Europe, traveling between police headquarters to yell at them. This doesn't accomplish much, but it is kind of funny, and he does have a map with circles drawn on it so that we all know he's super duper smart. After that setup, most of the second act is Jeffrey Dad Morgan harassing European cops, trying to convince them that they have an inaccurate profile of the serial killer. It's not really clear what JDM thinks he knows, but don't fucking worry about that. There's a lot of movie to go.
Let me in there.
Detective Cannon, please. We have a process.
Your process sucks.
And most of the stuff that happens this early on doesn't end up mattering. So the murders keep happening, postcards go out to the press to foreshadow a killing, which is always based on a famous piece of art. Fittingly, the art that is portrayed in the murder is always being hosted in the museum in whatever city that the murder is happening in. Through a series of red herrings and clues that take about the next hour of screen time and frankly aren't really worth discussing, eventually, Jeffrey Dad Morgan, his reporter friend, and various police departments all figure out that it's likely a couple committing the murders, not just one guy. So by cross-referencing couples that were spotted in nearby museums, with couples traveling between the countries where murders took place, the Super Friends arrest a young couple and interrogate them. The couple have multiple alibis corroborated by their catalog of traveling receipts documenting where they'd been, and are released. JDM is convinced of their guilt, and he calls his wife for a clue to get the plot moving. Alright, I gotta tell you, I am streamlining this story a lot. The biggest problem with this movie is that there's no connective tissue. Scenes don't feel related to each other to such a degree that I am convinced that this film is either cut out of order, or they cut out all the little moments that explain who people are, where they're going, or how they got there. As a result, the entire thing is a movie that follows the basic structure of a murder mystery, but it doesn't make any fucking sense because the details are all lost in the shuffle or completely absent. The next plot point in the story will demonstrate what I mean. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan can't find anything on the couple that was arrested, like no background or whatever. So with some assistance from his wife, who, after getting tired of aging gracefully, decided to swallow an entire beehive in lieu of plastic surgery, obtains a clue from a random district attorney in the United States that the murderer might be the son of some guy. So Beehive Face goes to talk to that some guy, and that some guy's odd statements lead JDM into the realization that the murderer might be that some guy's children, because that some guy loves art and the murderers like art, and that the children aren't a couple, but are in fact siblings. Now this would be a revelation in the story if JDM hadn't caught the couple yet, and somehow this information led to their capture, or led to proof of their guilt. You know, the way clues work. But it doesn't. The movie has already told us that these people are guilty, and so the revelation that they are siblings adds nothing but an extra layer of, oh gross, incest. I'm gonna recap that last plot point because the entire movie is just like this, and you need to understand how absurd this whole thing sounds when I lay it out. 1. JDM tells his beehive-faced wife that he can't find any info on the couple they arrested. This is never shown to us. It is expressed in one line of dialogue. Article 2. Beehive Face goes to talk to her DA buddy. The DA tells her of a story that he heard about a kid who ratted out his criminal dad and then got put into witness protection. Article 3. Inspired by this story, Beehive Face breaks into the criminal dad's vacant house, has a conversation with their nosy neighbor about how mean a dad the criminal dad was. Article 4. Beehive Face goes to talk to the criminal dad who speaks in riddles and likes art or whatever. Article 5. Beehive Face relays all of this information to JDM, who discerns, based on nothing but his own intuition, that the children of this man, who he's never spoken to, must be a brother-sister couple and are the brother-sister couple that are committing murders that he just released from custody. Mr. Patterson. James. Jimmy. What the fuck are you on about? This is bananas. This is an absolutely outrageous jump in logic. This is like if I went up to people accusing them of being Genghis fucking Khan because I had Chinese food last night. This doesn't make any sense. I should mention, just for clarity, that the sibling couple murderers aren't traveling under their legal names. So nothing about that information connects them at all to the art guy or to the murders other than the intuition of one stressed salt and pepper beard model. Okay, and remember how... Dude, it gets even better. Remember how I said this shit had all the connective scenes taken out? Well, that whole sequence I just described only takes up like 10 minutes of the movie because they keep cutting between those scenes with no explanation or setup, like they're fucking speedrunning the dumbest movie ever. It's absolutely insane to try to watch this film and understand what is going on from moment to moment. Alright, so the rest of the plot, JDM hunts down the siblings, he shoots one of them in the tummy and he lets them go so they can set up a sequel with one of the worst one-liners I've ever heard. Let's wrap this shit up before I lose my marbles completely. This movie sucks fucking balls, and if I think about the plot too much, it's gonna put me in a fucking straitjacket. Let's just wrap up that whole problem in some Christmas paper and label it, "The plot is really stupid," and put it on a shelf and forget about it. That sequence with Beehive-faced wife, that is what the entire movie is like. It's going so fast and giving you so little time to process each individual clue, you can very much tell that this is an entire novel squeezed into a 2-hour timeline, and they had to leave a lot of stuff out. There are no establishing shots. There are no quick sequences of characters traveling to indicate we're switching locations. There's not lines of dialogue that set up where characters are going or what they're doing there. The Postcard Killings director must have missed that day at movie camp. That's the main problem, is that the movie is frantic and is cut together too quickly to really be understood. The editing is all over the place. They do that crazy zoom in, zoom out shit that has always looked bad. It looked bad in Man on Fire, it looked bad in Twilight, and it looks bad here. I could shit on this for a really long time, but I'm gonna stop here before I herniate myself. The story on its own is fine, and for a murder mystery, art-themed serial killer isn't the worst premise I've ever heard. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is good, even if these lines are trash. This is a case of the movie being made in such an amateurish and unstructured way that it's hard to focus on anything that it actually gets right. And I know I'm being really hard on the logic of this movie, which isn't something I normally care about that much. It's a murder mystery detective thriller. It's supposed to make linear sense. That's how these things are done. 3 out of 10. I'm sorry, Jeffrey Dad Morgan. Get off The Walking Dead so you can be in more stuff. We miss you.